Hello there, guys. Well, it was only 2 days ago that I was here chatting to you lovely people, and we were discussing Angela Rayner. And if you recall, when we read that BBC News article, it had that little quote about the Prime Minister having full confidence in Angela Rayner. And we made a note of it, didn't we? We put a pin in that and we said, that's never a good sign. You never want to hear that the Prime Minister has full confidence in you. That probably means you're going to be resigning soon. And sure enough, Angela Rayner is resigning today. So there she goes, Deputy Prime Minister, Housing Minister. And indeed, we are now having a full on reshuffle with Labour. Now, if there's any silver lining to come out of this for Labour, and believe me, there's really not, it's the fact that the news of Rayner quitting and the Labour reshuffle might just overshadow day one of the Reform conference ever so slightly. Indeed, I think Farage brought his speech forwards in the day in order to have it a little bit earlier in the news cycle, so it would get a little bit more attention compared to the ongoing, storm that's happening with Labour right now. So it's interesting. We're literally getting live updates on the reshuffle as things go along right now. So I'm not going to give a running commentary of that, but it's probably something that we'll look at once it's all been said and done. Um, but yeah, the old phrase, week is a long time in politics. Well, here we are 2 days later from the last time I spoke to you, and indeed things are looking rather different. So this Rayner episode has been damaging to Labour, and Labour can't really afford to have things damaging to them at the moment because pretty much most of their time in office so far has been damaging to them. Just look at the polls. Um, the questions now also include what is going to happen about this position of Deputy Prime Minister. Are they going to put in some temporary person that maybe the Prime Minister or the Cabinet decides on? Are they going to have a timetable to have a leadership election to decide on who the new Deputy PM would be? If there is a leadership election, is it possible that you end up getting the membership pick someone that's going to be a real thorn in Starmer's side, trying to drag him over to some slightly different types of policies? We'll have to wait and see. As far as the Farage conference goes for Reform UK, a couple of interesting things that I've heard thus far. First of all, and I heard this yesterday actually, um, Nadine Dorris has defected from the Conservatives to Reform UK. And the moment I heard that, I thought of like a "Have I Got News for You" style joke, which was in the news this week. In a devastating blow to Reform UK, Nadine Dorris has defected to Reform UK. Farage was there on stage, and he said that one of Reform's weaknesses that they don't have people with experience of being in government. Well, don't worry. Look who we've got, and how embarrassing. Instead of bringing out some heavy hitting competent minister who's got real experience in the job, he brought out Nadine Dorris. Wait until someone tells him that she was the architect of the online safety bill. Ugh. Anyway, the other thing that I think is very interesting to keep an eye out on, and we had touched on this in previous streams also, is the left of politics right now. What was Zach Polanski as the head of the Green Party and Jeremy Corbyn leading up his insert name here, your party, insert name here? Um, there could be some changes coming on the horizon there. At first, I had thought when I'd first discussed this maybe a month or longer ago that the two parties would essentially be fishing in the same pool for voters, which is still true. I think there's going to be a significant degree of overlap between people who might be inclined to vote Green, might be inclined to vote for the new Corbyn party. However, I've listened to interviews within the last few days with both Zach Polanski and Jeremy Corbyn, and both of them are quite open, even within the context of this is the thing, when you interview politicians and you're asking them what are the chances of you working with this party, would you do some kind of electoral pact, what would happen in this situation, blah blah blah, they're often very very cagey. Not so much in this situation. Actually, both Polanski and Corbyn have indicated in their own words that yes, they have had discussions. Yes, they consider their parties to be quite similar in certain ways and be willing to cooperate in certain ways. And probably they will indeed be cooperating at some point in the future. They haven't ironed out exactly what that will mean, whether that will mean people standing down for one another. But, there's numerous different ways they could end up doing it. But the point is, both of them have now said on record publicly, yeah, yeah, we could, we see ourselves as being more similar to one another than that stodgy old Keir Starmer over there. So I'm sure we could do something. That does make things interesting because as much as at the moment Reform has emerged as this great big block on the right of politics at the moment, and obviously they're leading in the polls with about 30 or more % of the vote right now. Um, Green Party plus Corbyn Party. I'm trying to think. Where's the Green Party in the polls at the moment? Sort of 9-ish%. The Corbyn Party, obviously, that's kind of hypothetical at the moment, so it remains to be seen. But if you want to imagine from a from a standing start that the two of them added together could maybe be on about 15 up to 20% in the polls if they're doing rather well for themselves. And again, that looks more realistic the worse Labour ends up doing. And don't we know Labour are doing their very best to do the very worst they can possibly do. um it then becomes interesting because obviously under a first past the post system, whether you're stacking up a certain percentage in votes doesn't really matter so much. It matters whether you can win in particular seats. But if we're adding in this possibility that actually these two parties of the left could be cooperating with each other in the future in some way, then actually combining their vote shares together does make things a little bit more formidable than they were before. So it's an interesting time, folks. Obviously the summer is over. It's September. We're only just coming back into things. But I would say keep an eye on the left of politics as well as the right. A lot of attention, and rightly so, obviously. It's been a very big deal the past year. The rise of reform has been placed on Farage and the Reform Party. But I think that there could be something that ends up going on with the Green Party stroke the new Corbyn Party. And it'll be very interesting to see come the time of the local elections next year whether or not that manifests itself in some way. Indeed, I think the local elections next year are probably just going to be a big old bloodbath for Labour and the Tories, with Reform picking up, these left-wing parties picking up, and probably the Lib Dems doing nicely enough for themselves, tucked in there in the middle somewhere as well. And that's not even mentioning the contest that we've got coming up in Wales and Scotland, for that matter. There and now it's. I probably mispronounced that. Hey, Chief, is this an open stream at all? Thanks. I'm afraid, Bear, not this one, because I was just going to come and do a very short recap of things. I didn't want this to turn into like a big hour-long stream. I spent a good couple of hours chatting to you guys the other day, but given that there's been a few interesting little morsels in the past day or two, I wanted to come along and just sort of check in with those with you guys, which I think I've managed to do more or less. No worries, Chief. Hey, look, I'll take Chief. I don't often get Chief. Usually it's Captain, but Chief works for me as well. Anyway, folks, yeah, that's it for now. I just wanted to quickly touch on a few of the developments of the last couple of days and to say keep your eyes peeled because, we're in. It's not like we're not. Here's me saying the truisms. The sky is blue. Blah blah blah. But we are in for an interesting time with our politics. The two-party system is well and truly smashed. We are in a situation of multi-party politics now, still within the confines of first past the post, which makes things incredibly unpredictable when it comes to these fine margins come the next general election. A few percentage points can make the difference between dozens and dozens of seats. So what ends up happening on the left now with these new parties, well, the Greens not a new party, but it's a new leadership, new direction, is going to be just as interesting with what's happening with reform on the right. There we are. I just about thought those words out. Anyway, folks, that's it for now. Enjoy your weekends. Drop the stream a like if you've enjoyed. I'll see you all later on. Ta-ta.